Of course, death and horror so often go hand in bloody hand. Yes, there might be those rare occasions where we get through a horror film without even a single death. I mean, what's the fun in that, right? But then there are those other movies where there's a whole bunch of carnage, and those movies are not shy about letting us know all about that beforehand. It could be through trailers, through marketing ideas too clever for their own good, through familiar plot beats, or simply through a film's title, but the following movies absolutely made it clear what to expect. So with that in mind, I'm Andrew from What Culture Horror, and here are the horror movies where you know nearly everyone will die. Final Destination. Originally devised as an X-Files episode, the first Final Destination arrived in 2000 as somewhat the first in a new breed of horror franchises that focused on inventive kills over anything else, promising all the spills and thrills of a slasher movie, just without a hulking bad guy cracking skulls. Now, the bad guy here, well, it's Death. It's the Grim Reaper. And once you realise that the villain is Death, you kinda feel that everyone is pretty screwed. Added to that, you can't call a movie Final Destination and have its central premise being death stalking those who narrowly avoided a flight doomed for disaster and not have death get the job done. Even though Alex Browning and Claire Rivers make it out of Final Destination alive, Alex is dead by the time of Final Destination 2, while death catches up with Claire and finishes the job during that first sequel. House of a Thousand Corpses. Hey, I'm more of a Devil's Rejects kind of guy, but to some, House of a Thousand Corpses is the finest movie of Rob Zombie's career so far. A love letter to the horror genre, paying homage to slashers, monster movies, the supernatural, and a whole bunch more. As House of a Thousand Corpses opens up, we pick things up with a curious group of young adults driving around the US, looking to explore quirky roadside attractions and writing a book about their experiences. And when Captain Spaulding stirs the pot by telling the group about the legend of Dr. Satan, you kinda feel things aren't going to go too well for them. So when they end up being taken in by the Firefly family after a car tire is taken out, what starts as the dinner party story of a lifetime soon turns into a living nightmare. Plus, you know, it's kind of in the title here. It's tough to have a House of a Thousand Corpses without a smidge of the old ultra-violence. This is the End. Sure, it is absolutely a comedy, but there's also no doubting that Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg's This Is the End is absolutely a horror movie too, and a sci-fi picture too while we're at it. Adapted from the Jay and Seth vs. the Apocalypse short, here we've got Rogen, Jay Baruchel, James Franco, Craig Robinson, and a whole bunch of other familiar faces stuck in an LA mansion following the rapture. With the actors playing versions of themselves, they have to try and survive while having barely any life skills or natural resources. There's murders, exorcisms, demonic encounters, and Channing Tatum sex slaves, all amongst the usual gags and shenanigans. As for knowing that everybody was going to die, again, it is in the name. This is the End, as we get to witness the apocalypse play out. VHS 94. The first of the found footage VHS series to adopt a clear theme and run with it, VHS 94 set a template, redefining and rejuvenating a flagging horror franchise and going straight to Shudder, precisely where it could do the most damage. Set in, you guessed it, 1994, the movie follows in its predecessor's footsteps with a framed narrative that provides the grounding for its anthology of short films. All with 90s aesthetics, fashion, technology, and tropes that fans of that decade gobble right up, with each segment feeling truly unique from the rest. Now, while we never know what horrors we're going to see in a VHS movie, we do go in certain that nearly everybody will die, because of the previous film's precedent. Most of the segments from the previous VHS pictures result in the deaths of their characters, including what is pretty much a total wipeout for the characters of VHS 2. And on this front, VHS 94, it does not surprise. Friday the 13th, 2009. Back in 2009, when certain slasher icons were getting resurrected and trotted out in muted colours for a whole new generation, Marcus Nispel brought back Jason Voorhees for a Friday the 13th reboot. And sure, it might have had Michael Bay as a producer somehow, that was kind of weird, but as redos go, the film was pretty solid. Here it's the brilliant Derek Mears living out his childhood dream by playing Jason. Anyways, not only are we familiar with the original Friday the 13th by this point, where only one person gets out alive, that'd be Alice Hardy, but some of you might have forgotten or just not not even realized that the trailers for the Friday the 13th reboot literally told you there would be 13 deaths, counting them down even from 1 through to 13 and showing you so much of who was going to get killed and in what fashion. And when you know it, how many people did Jason kill this time out? Yeah, that would indeed be 13. Alien Resurrection. Jean-Pierre Jeuneau's Alien Resurrection takes us far into the future, even by the alien standards, to some 200 years after Ellen Ripley's death, where corporate and military interests are still chasing the ultimate alien weapon. And now they've cloned Ripley multiple times, complete with the aliens she had on board in Alien 3, and managed to create a new batch of xenomorphs as a result. The Resurrection trailers were pretty tactful about what they showed, teasing just enough xenomorph and Ripley to keep things interesting. But at the end of the day, Alien Resurrection, it is an alien movie. Given the film's large cast, you totally expect a lot of deaths. And also, because it's set up like some sort of hunting ground survival movie, a big old gang of expendable mercs, scientists and military men, Alien Resurrection is put together a little like a Predator film, just as much as it is an alien film, setting our expectations for absolute carnage. I Spit on Your Grave 2. Right, nobody at all requested an I Spit on Your Grave remake, and even fewer people requested a sequel to that do-over. And let us not even get into the third and fourth movies that followed. And weirdly, I Spit on Your Grave 2, it doesn't even have any ties to that remake. It's just merely been an excuse to do all of the things you'd expect from these films. I Spit on Your Grave 2, it takes the action to Bulgaria, where New York model Katie has been taken, drugged, unconscious, and somehow undetected, so that she can be the plaything of the local degenerate scene. After some lengthy, brutal assault and torture sequences, Katie makes her escape, then returns in full force on a roaring rampage of revenge. The violence is often unpleasant and shocking in its graphic nature, but it's not like we didn't know where this was headed. A sequel in a series where the norm is for everyone but the final girl to die a grisly, often sexualized death. Yep, anyone sitting down for I Spit on Your Grave 2, they knew exactly what to be in for. Mandy. Panos Cosmatos' trippy horror Mandy is one of the most important films in Nicolas Cage's renaissance, playing a big part in relaunching The Cage as an indie horror icon after years spent taking any old straight-to-video actioner. But while Mandy's trailer does a good job of teeing up the film's unique aesthetic, sound, and bloody action of course, it perhaps doesn't leave enough to the imagination. Cage plays Red, a logger who lives in the middle of nowhere with his artist partner Mandy, and whose life is turned upside down when the religious cult Children of the New Dawn burns Mandy alive in front of Red, setting Red off on the warpath with drugs, grief, weapons, and a one-track mind. There's no two ways about it. The trailer spoils Mandy's death, the catalyst for the whole film, and shows us Nicolas Cage as a man with a vendetta against the cult and some demon biker boys who wronged him, hacking and splatting everyone he can get his hands on. But that's maybe the point. It doesn't matter that we know everyone is going to die when the journey there is so outright crazy and entertaining. Quarantine. From John Eric Dowdle, found footage horror Quarantine puts Jennifer Carper into action as Angela Vidal, the reporter who, along with her cameraman Scott, is confined to an apartment building quarantined by the CDC when the residents go feral and start biting each other. Needless to say, zombies, they are the cause of this symptom. Across a tight and intense 90 minutes, we watch as everyone in the apartment block is bitten and infected, down to just Angela and Scott. Of course, Scott goes next, right at the tail end of the movie, and then Angela is taken right after she retrieves his camera. However, the Quarantine trailer and marketing material all made liberal use of the image of Angela, the final survivor, being dragged away into the darkness, which is literally the final image of the film. You could have guessed that most people going to die, but any chances of Angela surviving were largely spoiled ahead of time. Pearl. Ty West and Mia Goth's X trilogy might not have quite stuck the landing with Maxine. Decent, but not great. But the trilogy's other legs, X and Pearl, are a couple of phenomenal horror pictures. To hone in on Pearl here though, the prequel puts Mia Goth in the title role once again, just this time she's playing the younger Pearl rather than the elderly Pearl she'd played in X. And because X was so fresh in our minds by the time of Pearl's release, literally there's only 6 months between the release of those films, we knew exactly what to expect here. death, and plenty of it. The young Pearl has dreams of dancing in superstardom, but her overbearing mother and rural farmyard life don't exactly provide the ideal platform to leave her proverbial Kansas, or Texas as it is here, and embark on a magical Technicolor adventure. As a result, our already unstable Pearl begins to unwind further, committing ever greater acts of violence, inevitably leading her back towards her own parents. Given how the Pearl character is a violent, murderous old woman in X, still living on the self-same farm too, we go into Pearl knowing that she must fail at her dreams, dispatch her family, and take up her mantle as the old axe murderer. And boy, does she ever.